The night was quiet in the grand penthouse that overlooked the sleepless city below. Rain traced slow, trembling lines down the glass walls, blurring the glow of skyscrapers into watercolor streaks. Inside, Adrian Voss, the billionaire CEO everyone feared and admired, sat motionless in his recliner, eyes closed, pretending to sleep. His breathing was steady, deliberate. He was not tired, he was testing her. Lena stood by the doorway, clutching the cleaning cloth to her chest. The soft hum of the air conditioner was the only sound between them. Her uniform was slightly too big, her shoes too worn. She hesitated, staring at her employer, the man whose name echoed through the financial world like a legend. Adrian Voss, ruthless in boardrooms, merciless in business. But tonight, as he pretended to rest, he looked almost human, vulnerable even. Lena took a careful step forward. She had been working for him for 3 months, and though she barely spoke, she had observed much. He ate dinner alone, worked through the night, and never smiled. The mansion was filled with art and silence, beauty and loneliness. She had overheard the gossip about his failed marriage, his estranged brother, the scandal that left him cold and guarded. None of it mattered to her. What mattered was that he paid her fairly and never raised his voice. In her world, that was kindness enough. But tonight, something in her chest ached. Maybe it was the way his hand loosely gripped the photo frame that rested beside him, a picture of a boy, maybe 10 years old, with Adrian's sharp eyes and bright smile. She'd seen it once before, and she knew instinctively. That was the son he'd lost in the accident that the tabloids whispered about. She didn't mean to linger, but there was something fragile about him tonight. The rain outside mirrored the heaviness she carried too, the kind that came from trying to hold life together when everything kept falling apart. Adrian, beneath half-lowered lashes, watched her. He had heard from his staff that she was quiet, obedient, unassuming, but trust, that was another thing entirely. People always wanted something, money, favors, opportunity, so he tested them. He always tested them. He wanted to see what this maid would do when she thought no one was watching. Lena noticed the untouched dinner tray on the table, cold steak, uneaten bread, and a glass of whiskey half-finished. Her heart softened. Without a word, she took the blanket folded at the end of the couch and gently draped it over his shoulders. Her hands trembled slightly. She'd never dared touch him before. The blanket slipped down a little, so she adjusted it carefully, as if afraid to wake a sleeping lion. Then she noticed the photo frame in his hand. The glass was smudged with fingerprints. Quietly, she took a corner of her cloth and wiped it clean. Her gaze lingered on the boy's smile. "You must miss him," she whispered, barely audible. Adrian's chest tightened. He hadn't expected that. She sighed softly. "You look tired all the time, sir. Maybe you should try to sleep for real, not just pretend." She smiled faintly at her own foolishness, then turned to leave. But before she reached the door, she stopped, hesitated, and walked back. She placed something beside him, a small, paper-wrapped object. It was a muffin. Blueberry, the kind she baked for herself every Sunday when she missed her family back home. "You always skip breakfast," she murmured. "This one's for tomorrow. It's not much, but I hope you'll like it." She left quietly, her footsteps fading down the hall. Adrian opened his eyes. The room felt different now, warmer, almost alive. He looked at the muffin, still wrapped neatly, a small note tucked beneath it in careful handwriting. "You don't have to be alone all the time. The world can be kind again." His throat tightened. It had been years since anyone had offered him something without expecting anything in return. Years since anyone had spoken to him with gentle honesty instead of rehearsed admiration or fear. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat there, the blanket still around his shoulders, the note clutched in his hand, and wept silently for the boy he lost, for the man he had become, and for the kindness he had forgotten how to give. The next morning, Lena entered the office, expecting the usual silence. But Adrian was already there, standing by the window. The storm had passed and sunlight poured into the room, painting the marble floor in gold. He turned to her, his voice softer than she had ever heard. "Lena," he said, "sit with me a moment." She froze, sir. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please." She sat, uncertain. He studied her, really looked at her for the first time. She was young, but her eyes carried old pain, loss, resilience, quiet dignity. The kind of strength that came from surviving, not conquering. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. "Last night I wasn't asleep." Her face paled. "I am sorry, sir, I didn't mean to." "No," he interrupted gently. "Don't apologize. You did nothing wrong. You did something I didn't expect. You reminded me that people can still be kind without reason." She said nothing, unsure how to respond. He looked down, his voice trembling slightly. "I lost my son 3 years ago. Since then, I've been testing everyone around me, waiting for someone to fail me so I could stay angry at the world. But you," his voice broke, "you didn't take anything, you gave." Tears filled her eyes. "You don't have to thank me, sir. I know what it's like to lose someone. I know what silence feels like when it becomes too heavy." For a moment they sat in shared stillness, two broken souls bound by quiet understanding. That morning marked the beginning of something Adrian hadn't felt in years: healing. He started coming out of his office more often, asking about the staff, eating real meals, even smiling occasionally. The empire he had built on discipline and isolation began to soften around the edges. Months later, Lena received an envelope on her day off. Inside was a note in Adrian's familiar handwriting. "You reminded me that humanity is not a weakness. It's strength. Thank you for saving me when I didn't even know I needed saving." Alongside the note was a scholarship offer, fully paid, for her to attend culinary school, the dream she had quietly shelved long ago. Lena cried for a long time that day, not because of the money, but because someone had finally seen her worth. And Adrian, looking out at the horizon from his penthouse, thought of her words: "You don't have to be alone all the time." For the first time in years, he believed them. Because sometimes it isn't the grand gestures or riches that heal a broken heart. Sometimes it's a simple act of kindness, a blanket over tired shoulders, a muffin on a lonely night, a whisper that reminds you the world can be kind again. And that, he realized, was the wealth he had been searching for all along.